From 21 Sports, this is the Football Roundtable, a look at the upcoming football season in our valley.
Hi, everybody, and welcome to this high school football roundtable as we come to you from the Warren Wellness Center here in Warren, Ohio, just alongside Mollenkopf Stadium, a fabulous facility for the students of Warren and also for the community down the road. And certainly this place is magnificent and one of the best that we have seen. Joined by a cast of characters tonight. To my immediate left is Champ Summers, a local historian. We have DJ Yokley from YSN and Vindicator and Tribune Chronicle Sports Editor Dan Hiner. And gentlemen, what a facility this is. Let's start right there.
Oh, it's beautiful. Absolutely beautiful. 65 yards, they told us, of turf here, so all the kids can get work in year round. Absolutely gorgeous.
Dana and I already ran around the track 3 times and we're in great shape. Probably not, but anyways, yeah, unbelievable. It smells like a new car, by the way, in here.
Yes, it does.
And it's the fact that it's a good multi-purpose facility. So even if you're not getting work on the turf, maybe you get some of the receivers or DBs, whatever, they can always run around the track and they can still get that cardio and speed work in. So it's a real good facility overall.
Now, they don't have the occupancy permit just yet, but this will be available to Warren students, and it's just much more than this. I mean, there's plenty on the far side to my left. There's classrooms, and then there's a deck that goes out to watch the football game if you want to here at Mollenkopf Stadium. So certainly Superintendent Steve Shiro, Athletic Director Rick Shepis, and everyone associated with the Warren schools has done a magnificent job with this. And again, it did not cost taxpayers any additional money to build this fine facility. And within the next couple of weeks, maybe several weeks or a month or so, they'll have the official grand opening for this. But we appreciate them allowing us to be in here tonight. So, gentlemen, let's start. Another football season around the corner, about 48 hours from starting. But 6 new teams have moved on to different regions. And I think the one that stands out for me, at least, is Poland, going from Division 4 to Division 5.
Yeah, when you look at that, I mean, that turns into the NE8 division because pretty much all of those teams, the big hitters at least, are in that division. Poland has a potential second matchup with South Range. Girard, right, in that division as well, too. So, I mean, the NE8 could pretty much own Division 5 if they really want to.
And 7 of those teams made the playoffs last year, so it should be a really neat thing to watch because the competition is going to be tremendous.
And Dan, one of those teams that has moved up is Springfield. They were in Division 6. They went to 7. Now they're back to Division 6.
And it's not like they really, have struggled regardless of whatever division they're in. So I think you're going to see a pretty solid Springfield team, and they're going to contend. They're going to always make a run. They just have that culture in them. So it'll be a nice showing, I think, and probably an interesting kind of matchup, as we kind of progress into the playoffs.
7 divisions, which leads us to the question, and this has been talked about throughout the state. It's been debated. We've talked about it many of times. Is 7 divisions too many? Because in the state, they're going to go to 7 divisions in every other sport as well. So, when you talk about football, about 800 teams playing football, you're winning a state championship, basically 110 teams. So is it too many?
And in football, I don't think so. I think football, the great equalizer is the number of divisions that they have. Other sports, I think we might be looking at too many divisions. But for football, I do think it's the great equalizer.
Yeah, and the problem, basically, is Division 1. Because there's over 100 teams in the other divisions. There's only 71 teams in Division 1. That means that only 7 teams statewide in Division 1 will not make the playoffs. So there's the problem right there, and I don't know how you fix that.
And if we're being honest, when it's one game once a week, travel and things like that don't really matter. When you have multiple games like you would with basketball, baseball, softball, then you got to start kind of taking the travel component into it. But when it's one Friday night, I think a lot of schools are willing to overlook that because they'll bus kids. They make it an event. Trying to bus somebody from, let's say, Columbiana County up to Cleveland to try to get a game on a Tuesday, that might not be the best thing for a volleyball team.
No.
So I do think it's a little too much for the other sports.
We have 2 teams in this area, Chalker and Sebring, that are playing 8-man football, and I know there's some talk of maybe a lot of teams on the northwestern part of the state, a handful play 8-man football. Is there a chance that 8-man football could become Division 7 and then everybody else move up so you have 6 divisions of 11-man football?
I mean, that's interesting. That's real interesting. I've said this once, and I'll say it a million times. I think that we are on the precipice of flag football becoming a varsity sport in several of these schools for a number of reasons, but you're seeing it become an Olympic sport. So as much as I enjoy 8-man football and the rise of it, I think flag football is right on the tails, and we're going to start seeing that as well.
Yeah, and the physicality that doesn't exist in flag football is really key, especially when you talk about nationwide, the problem they're having with concussions on the high school football level. And I agree with you. I think flag football may be the new thing in maybe 4 or 5 years.
It's just, I think it'd be a matter of just seeing how everything plays itself out, because even if you start to get more of a rise of 8-man football, I feel that might be some schools that are just like, yeah, but it's not really football. There's something missing for a Friday night with flag football, and I think that would take away a little bit, but I think that's going to be a school district by school district decision.
And I talked to Anthony Agresta, the head coach at Sebring, who's in their second year of 8-man football, and he says, you know, the community has adjusted to that. Chakra is not going to do it for this year, and he goes, hey, just to have football on a Friday night, the community has rallied around it and really love it.
What do you think the main reason is? Is it because of the lack of being able to compete? Maybe?
Well, I think it's the lack of numbers, and I think as we get more into the show, we'll talk about some of the programs that are struggling with numbers that really have to have some conversations. And I've talked to some coaches and some administrators throughout the area where their numbers are down a little bit, where they have had those conversations about 8-man football. But there's one thing, there's a difference of having those conversations and then actually making that jump to do it, because it is a commitment. Because what happens if you jump this year or in 2025 and then several years down the road, you get enough players to go back to 11-man.
Interesting.
I mean, so, 8-man's got the new generation of people behind it. 11-man, obviously the old school mentality, but the flag football kind of appeases to everybody. You're playing 5 to 7 players. You can play co-ed. The NFL has a huge funding spree going on right now in the game, so it wouldn't cost schools much at all, if at all. Again, I love, the more football, the better. Let's put it that way, huh?
I'm going to stop you. It's a good conversation. It's a debate that I'm sure that will continue over the next several years. 8-man football, 11-man football. But when we come back, we're going to take our first break. We're going to talk about the Division II and III teams when our high school football roundtable continues. Back here at the Warren Wellness Center, DJ Champ and Dan, as we continue our discussion of the 2024 high school football season. We'll start in Division II, and let's start where we're at. We're in Warren at the Warren Wellness Center. Let's talk about the Harding Raiders, who have a new coach in Matt Richardson.
Champ.
Well, last year, tough year, 7 losses, 6 to playoff schools, and they also lost to Farrell. Very tough schedule, and their schedule this year doesn't get any easier. They have 24 combined state championships of their opponents, so they always play a tough schedule, but and a first-year coach, so it's going to be interesting. Now, they always finish under 500, but they're able to make the playoffs because of their schedule, so 4 and 6 could very well get them in.
And they were 4 and 6 last year. Matt Richardson, no stranger to Warren, played at Warren JFK, a longtime assistant coach throughout Northeast Ohio, and takes over for Steve Arnold and knows the Warren system, knows about the Warren kids, and knows how important it is to win in this community.
They've got a big leader we didn't mention yet, Rick Shepis, their new athletic director, who knows everything about everything when it comes to sports. Gave us a nice tour of the facility prior to this broadcast. But, I mean, when you look at the leadership that they have, that's where it starts. And I think there's a great understanding of they're a reflection of what they want their kids to become. And Warren, they've got a great start.
With that said, though, it also helps when you have a 6'6", 6'7" quarterback. So, you know, when you have somebody who's athletically gifted, it can kind of even out a little bit of some of those difficult opponents because you just have somebody who can kind of take over a little bit. And him getting experience, you know, in past games, that definitely helps, especially to kind of ease the transition a little bit more.
And again, this is a program that has 2 former head coaches on staff, and Don Menendez, who coached at JFK, and Greg Lazari, the former Newton Falls coach.
Yeah, I think they opened the season with Kent McKinley, so it's they play, you know, give them credit. They play a tough schedule. That's the bottom line. And I know we're going to be talking about Fitch, but the Fitch-Harding game every year seems to be the game of the year. I mean, it's amazing when they go back and forth. It's become a very good rivalry.
You know, Chaz Coleman will lead this team at the quarterback spot, a very versatile passer, likes to sling it a little bit, has more responsibility this year. They're going to be relying on him a lot.
Yeah, I mean, anytime that you can a very diverse backfield from a standpoint, you can run it, you can pass it, you can run anything you want out of that backfield. It's an incredible talent, and we're all looking forward to the Raiders this year.
And Dan, when you have a last name of Provid and Warren, you are special.
Definitely. I would say kind of everyone needs to kind of temper their expectations a little bit, because we never know how players are going to respond to new coaches and new environments, right? So, yeah, there are a lot of familiar faces. There's some, playing experience coming back, but you never quite know until you take the field if everything's going to click. Because we were thinking the same thing going into last year. You brought up the Farrell game. That was a moment. They kind of got hit in the mouth a little bit. They were able to rebound well, but, it was still one of those moments that kind of made you open up your eyes a little.
Let's go to Austintown Fitch. 105 players, have a new quarterback. Devonzo Tate took 20 snaps last year. I think their offensive line and their linebacking core is pretty good with Cicerelli and Booker Newberry. This is a team that finished, 6-3 last year, again, in Division II, Region 5. Very difficult division.
Yeah, they were the 10th seed last year, and they've made the playoffs 4 consecutive years. This is a very good program. T.J. Parker in his 5th season. And they were 4-0 against Division I schools last year. So that says you something. And they had a tough playoff loss to Walsh Jesuit, who scored 58 points on them. But, boy, Fitch every year gets better and better. And I think they're the premier program in Division II in this area.
Yeah, you look at what their schedule holds. You talk about Harding. Fitch just continues to just put the meat churner in their schedule, so that way they feel they're prepared for that playoff run. And I think this might be one of the years that, they're my sleeper, which I feel like I'm serving them a disrespect notice by saying that. But I think TJ would be okay with me saying that, giving him a little bit of bulletin board material.
And they're a program that's, you brought up offensive line. It should be good up there. It's going to be a solid group. They always seem to have like 1 or 2 good receivers or DBs all the time. So when you can start getting that line play, settled, now all of a sudden you can start creating those openings for that athleticism to really shine.
We're going to move on to Boardman, a team that finished 1-9. I know the expectations are higher in Boardman. DJ Jota, now in his 3rd season, has a system in place.
I'm not going to sing We Are the Spartans song, okay, because I forgot the words. But anyways, worst record, 1-9 last year since 2013. 3rd year for DJ Jota, 5-15. Their only victory was over winless Howland, 37-6. They've had 1 postseason victory in the last 16th season. That was a 2020 COVID year win over Cuyahoga Falls, 49-0. They can go nowhere but up as far as I'm concerned, and hopefully they will do that.
This is a team that really wants to get back to its roots, and that's physicality. It's running the ball. It's something that had been in that program for over a decade. They feel they kind of lost a little bit of it last year, so I would expect a little bit more focus on ground, right? Try to take a little bit more pressure off the quarterback. Just keep trying to move forward.
August 1st, they had Midnight Madness. There is a different sheriff in town for Boardman. When you look at what they're trying to do, what DJ's tried to do, you talked about it, physicality. He's finally got his kids buying into the program, and I think it's going to be a big win for Boardman. You said only one way to go.
Yeah, and when they're good, their offensive line is good. And they're going to be running a lot this year because they're going to a running offense pretty much.
We're going to move over to Canfield, new coach. Angelo DeLucia committed to Ohio U. Will this team take a step back with the new coaching staff? Sometimes that happens. Dan, I don't know if it happens here.
Yeah, you want to talk about kind of expectations with Richardson taking over here? Try filling in for a Pavlansky over at Canfield. I mean, that's going to be, kind of a little bit of a mouthwash moment. You kind of want to let him do his own thing. And he's been a part of that team for the last couple of years. So it's going to be just trying to keep everything status quo and try to keep things moving forward, coming a couple years off a state title.
Let's talk a little bit about Ursuline. This is a team that won all 10 games during the regular season. Dan Reardon, 14th year, D.C. Farrell, Terrain Davis, Devontae Taylor, Phil Bowser. The list goes on and on.
They're the real deal. I mean, that's all you can say. Every year now we hear, how's Ursuline going to be? This year, I just keep telling everybody they're the real deal because they're gonna put butts in seats. They are must-watch streaming as far as I'm concerned.
Yeah, and you look at their record since Coach Reardon came back, unbelievable. They've done everything. They had their first undefeated season since 2010, but they've done everything on that resume except win a state title. And every year, we pick them to do really well. But I was surprised when they lost to Chardon last year, 31-14 in the playoffs. That surprised me.
I have Ursuline going 8-2. I think their opener against Walsh Jesuit is going to be tougher than a lot of people will expect. When we come back, we'll talk about more teams from the Mahoning Valley when our high school football roundtable continues. We're going to move into Division 4 and start with Cardinal Mooney. And surprisingly, maybe the stat of the night is Cardinal Mooney has not had a winning season since 2017.
What? I mean, that blew me away. And we've watched them for the last 5 years. Cardinal Mooney, this is the one that piques a lot of people's interest from our standpoint at YSN. You just never know what to expect anymore. Carl's always got his guys ready to go, but the schedule always kind of puts a damper on things the later they get because they have depth issues. So will they have enough depth this year?
That's another team that can go 4-6, 5-5, and make the playoffs. But they got 10 starters back on defense, including a very, very talented secondary. I look for them to have a big year this year.
Well, Carlos Gomez is part of that secondary. He's also a wide receiver. Keith Rhodes will start at quarterback. He was behind Ashton O'Brien for 3 years or so. I think this is a year that Carl Mooney maybe takes this team to the next step. It's the 4th year for Carl. These kids started as freshmen under him, so certainly this is a season they've been waiting for.
This is the class where the tempo's been set, right? You plant the seeds. You hope it's now started to develop.
And they have, some other players. You have the Desmond kid, Mahone, Rocco Gentile, and Walker Jones. So again, this is a team that has a lot of starters coming back, and certainly I think can take a step. But again, getting off to that good start is key. Let's go to Hubbard. First losing season last year since 1998. 2 of their key players, the quarterback Alex Hackwelder and Braden Songer, the wide receiver.
Hard to believe they were the only school in the Northeast state that didn't make the playoffs. Usually it's the opposite. But you got to hope that they started the season last year 3-0 and just had a very tough ending of the season. Brian Hoffman, his 18th season, been there, done that. Very good coach. Hopefully they'll have a bounce back season.
Yeah, Brian will tell you the first thing is you got to win that league, and you got to at least be competitive in that league. And you said you started 3-0, and then the choppy waters came. So the NE8 will teach you who you are very quickly.
It's just a matter of, just like you said, navigating those ups and downs, right? When you're Division 4, whatever they were, about 5-6 years ago, you kind of were able to kind of navigate that a little bit more. Now all of a sudden you're in a new conference and things like that. You got to just deal with the tests as they come.
The schedule changes a little bit. Open up with Brookfield, who was their arch rival. Haven't played them since 2013, and then play Wilmington out of Western Pennsylvania for the first time. Let's talk about Niles, a team that went 6-4 last year. Had a solid season, went to the postseason, but lost quite a bit on the offensive side.
Yeah, to lose Antoine Gardner in any locker room, any field is going to hurt you. So I'm interested to see what they have coming up. I heard they have some great freshmen coming up that can fill some gaps. That seems to be kind of the across-the-board story for a lot of these teams this year. So I think Niles will fit into that nicely.
They had a playoff win last year, scored a record history at school, 65 points versus Edgewood. They started off 5-1. It's only the second time in the last 11 years they made the playoffs, so things are looking up for Niles.
And I think their offensive and defensive lines will be key. Masiosi, Raleigh, and Whetstone will lead that group, and certainly it's going to start up front for Niles. Let's jump over to Struthers. This is a team that, really had a great season last year, went 10-4, set all kinds of school records, have 24 seniors on this team this year for John Beck. He was most impressed, and he was most proudly to say that these are Struthers kids who were little Wildcats, junior high, and then came into the system, and it's really paid off for them.
This program kind of came out of nowhere last year. I think people were expecting a step forward, but not really to the extent that they had. So, like you said, when you can build that culture and you can allow them to kind of come through it, now all of a sudden you can go from a 5-5 to having the season they did last year.
And DJ, when you have Jason Dukes and Devin Bram and Vince Boyla, the offensive center, and Brown on the offensive line, I mean, those are all the ingredients, to have a solid season.
I asked one local coach, what does Struthers look like? What makes you nervous? And in one word, he said, they're big. They are big. So they're going to move mountains. They're going to move defensive lines up front on the offense. So you got to be ready to get punched in the mouth if you're playing Struthers, no matter if it's game 1 or game 16 this year.
And again, I think it's an interesting schedule. They open up with Beaver Local, then play a very good Cheney team in week 2. So I think we're going to find out a lot about Struthers early.
And 3 playoff wins last year. That's the first time they've done that in a single season in school history. So they're coming on.
Let's talk about West Branch. 30th anniversary of their state championship back in 1994. Finished 11-2 last year. Return a good part of that offense. Boston Mullinex, Joey Jackson, the offensive lineman Hayden Martin. On the defensive side, Flickinger and Graham. This is a team, again, I don't know what they do out in Beloit, but they always have good football there.
Yeah, and their offense last year, 41.8 points per game. They only lost 2 starters from that team. One of them was the quarterback, but they won their 4th straight Eastern Buckeye Conference title. This is a team that one of the teams I think could be a sleeper this year and could go a long way.
I really think that this is going to be a special team. Everywhere you look, there's someone that's a playmaker or a big fella that is going to push people around and be aggressive. I'm really excited because it's going to be a historic season for West Branch one way or another. Hopefully, they've got a rusher that can break the record and a receiver that can break the record as well, so look out for West Branch.
Let's jump down to Liberty, a team that has plenty of talent. It starts with their quarterback, DeJuan Moody, who's only a sophomore. Juju Farrell, Shamir Franklin, Brady Morgan, Isaiah Gonzalez, and Kingston Bowers on the offensive line. Coach Joe Simon has the ingredients here. Can they deliver?
Yeah, he really wants to see his program take the next step, right? And that's getting to the playoff, making a playoff run. So I think he feels that he has the ingredients. It's just going to be whether or not the players buy in and then are willing to kind of make that progress.
And it's a good opener for them against JFK.
New logo, new attitude, and I think Coach Simon's going to, again, take them to the promised land, or at least take that next step.
And they started 1-4 last year and won 4 of their last 5. So that's the way to do it, finish strong. And so hopefully they'll get to do that this season.
Let's go to South Range, where they have dominated the Northeast State. David Rock in his 2nd season, 12-2. Tristan Toy, Luke Starkey, Aiden Dominguez. On the defensive side, Semesco and Nagy. Again, a team that is reloaded.
6 games at home to start the season, followed by 4 away games, and then what we anticipate will be a couple more home games in the playoffs. I think anytime you look at that schedule, you go, okay, this is great, but what about next year? But this year, I think we're in for another special edition of the Burgundy and Gold.
And they finished last year losing 32-0 to Perry, the eventual state champion. First time ever they've been shut out in the playoffs, so that's something to build on. I believe that I've mentioned that to the players.
They've dominated the Northeast 8. Is that window starting to close a little bit in the Northeast 8?
They didn't really look like they missed a beat last year with a new coach in place, so I would say no. I still think they're the team to beat there.
Plus, they lost all those players after the 22 champion, and they came back and had a very solid season. This is a great program. And we used to call them the best program not to win a state title. You can't say that anymore because they won one.
All right, well, we're going to head to Division 6 when our high school football roundtable continues. Welcome back to our high school football roundtable. As the season kicks off Thursday night, there will be 6 games. We are at the Warren Wellness Center, where this facility is not open just yet. We appreciate Superintendent Steve Shiro and the Warren Board of Education, along with Athletic Director Rick Shepis, for allowing us to highlight this facility, as it is a great facility for the community of Warren, especially the students here in the Warren School District. Well, let's move to Division 6 and begin with the Brookfield Warriors. They have a new stadium. They'll be playing on campus for the first time in a very long time. Addison Field is 60, 70 years old. They're going to move on campus. Their first game was supposed to be at that stadium, but it was moved because it's just not ready. It will be ready in weeks 2 and 3, but they open up against Hubbard. And Randy Clark has never beaten Hubbard, but again, this is a program that finished 5-6 last year that I think, again, has the talent to make some noise.
Yeah, 5 straight playoff appearances. They got eliminated by United, and only 4 losing regular seasons under Randy Clark. He's been very impressive.
I expect a lot of Rico Smith and a lot of Christian Davis, because they are going to try to utilize those 2 as much as possible.
Yeah, the stadium might not be ready, Dana, but I think the Warriors will be.
You know, and again, they have Devin Reardon and Gregorino and some other young men, Malafau, who will help this program. Coach Clark has, stayed to the best, has continued to do what his talent enables him to do, and has certainly made his mark there in Brookfield. Let's go down to Columbiana. This is a team that, on Bob Spate, finished 5-6, made the playoffs, lost to Kirtland, and trying to rebuild a little bit. Has a returning quarterback in Zerjenovic back, and some wide receivers in Brager and Bacon.
31st year for Bob Spate. When he started his coaching career at the school, Bill Belichick was the coach of the Cleveland Browns. That's how long ago it was. But Yeah, they started off 0-4 and won 5 of the last 6 to get the 16th seed, so they did make the playoffs last year.
Anytime you lose your leading tackler in school history, it's going to affect you. So if I'm guessing, Coach Spate is going to make those boys on offense run a little bit harder and try to beat everybody in a shootout.
It's the trenches. It's always going to be the trenches with Columbiana. They like to play down and dirty and be able to assert themselves. That's going to be the key.
I think one of the surprise teams last year that really came out of nowhere was Mineral Ridge, finishing 8-5. You know, they're very good receiver. I think maybe one of the best receivers in Trumbull County this year in Brady Balestrino. Shingledecker is back as their quarterback. Again, Brian Shaner does what he does with his talent. Jumped out, had a good season last year, and I think caught some people by surprise in the playoffs.
Coach Shaner just looks and he says, okay, we're going to win in the offseason. We're going to win in the weight room. And I think that was the biggest jump that, you know, kind of went unnoticed last year, was the strength and conditioning of the Rams, and it really turned out on the football field.
Yeah, they were the 10th seed last year, and they won 2 playoff games. That's the first time that's been done in school history. And they lost to a very tough Mogador team, eliminated. But, yeah, they were one of the surprise teams, Dan, exactly.
It's all going to be about balance, right? We talked about quarterback, really good quarterback, really good receiver. Balance it with a run game, get some good defense, and they could be cooking.
Well, let's jump down to Springfield again, a team that's to always win. Sean Guerrero in his 18th season at Springfield, and their running back is back, and Kason Kosek, and they also have Gentile back, and they're on the offensive line led by Tom Shealy.
Yeah, I think Sean's only 3 or 4 games away from being the all-time leading winner in football history at Springfield. So, you know, it's one win for the Gipper, win 3 or 4 for the Gipper, and just, I mean, it's Springfield. They're never out of any conversation for a ball game. I'm expecting them to surprise a lot of people this year.
8 straight winning seasons for them, and their 4 losses came to South Range, Geneva, Lowellville, and Danville in the playoffs. Those schools combined for a record of 46-7. But like you said, they're always good. This is one of the best programs in the area in the last 5 years.
You want to talk about kind of like building a culture, working with what you got. We know Springfield as a school is not particularly huge, but they always have turnout. They always have players. So there's always that culture that kind of just continues to build.
Homegrown, too.
Will we find out a lot about Springfield against South Range, you know, Friday?
Yeah, I think that easily, in my opinion, is the best all-local matchup, and that's always a great game. But yeah, we'll find out a lot about both teams, actually, South Range and Springfield. It'll be as Keith Jack says, it's going to be a barn burner.
Let's talk about Valley Christian a little bit. You know, this is a program, Andy Hake has led this program. They're trying to revitalize the old South High Stadium, want to play some games there in the coming years. But again, I think this is a team that could fly under the radar a little bit. They have one of the best running backs, I think, in the area in Jashawn Lindsay.
They had 2 seniors last year. They were young. Andy had to get them disciplined at times throughout the season. Listen, Jashawn Lindsay is going to be one of the best and one of the most noticed players with the football this year. That is my guarantee.
Andy Hake's 4th season, 20-8 overall in the regular season. And they started 4-2, but they really struggled down the stretch with a tough schedule, especially offensively. They only scored 19 total points in the last 3 ball games.
And really, I think Andy Hake wanted to kind of see how these guys did last year, just kind of start to build there. And I know he feels really confident now that he feels they're playing schools of similar size. Mm-hmm. So yeah, it's a little bit of a travel, but he thinks that they can kind of, they're where they need to be.
And Dan, you touched on it in an article earlier this year with, you know, the South High graduates and the resurrection of South High Stadium. They're in favor of that.
Oh yeah, yeah, definitely. They feel that that is a gem, not just historically. We talk so much about school, you know, places like Rayen. You know, Rayen Stadium is a gem on the north side. They feel that that's the same thing on the south side, and they want to kind of build and make that not just part of the Valley Christian campus and kind of community, but bring that back to the south side and give it something to really look forward to on Friday nights.
Well, the majority of our teams, again, are in the lower divisions of 5, 6, and 7. I think we have, 10 teams in Division 6 and Division 7. So certainly a lot of weight and a lot of playoff possibilities are in those divisions. Well, speaking of Division 7, we'll check on them next when our high school football roundtable continues. Welcome back to our high school football roundtable. I'm joined by DJ Yokley from YSN, Champ Summers, local sports historian, and Dan Hiner, the editor of the Tribune Chronicle and Vindicator, the sports editor. Gentlemen, thanks for joining us tonight. We've touched on a lot of teams. We're going to jump into Division 7 here a little bit. And I think one of the impressive things about East Palestine is they got more players out this year. They went through the train derailment episode and so on and so forth. Lost some players due to that. But I know that this is a program that certainly finished 2-8 last year, but will show vast improvements this season.
Yeah, they've got a great senior class of leadership that's going to help this freshman class that they've been waiting on. A great group of student athletes coming up that are going to learn the ways of the Bulldog. I agree with you. I think we're on the right track back in East Palestine. And this could be a big year in the future of what could be in Bulldog country.
And Mike Dempster has been very, very patient with this.
He has been, and it's been challenging. You said through the train derailments and things, and losing kids and gaining kids, and not knowing what you have from day to day in the weight room. He and the entire staff have done a really good job of being patient and understanding what these kids are going through, because they're not just walking these kids through football anymore. They're making sure they're okay for life.
Now, positive, they finished the last 4 games 2-2 after an 0-6 start, so that's good to build on.
Yeah, you just want to take it step by step. You don't want to rush anything. You don't want to push these kids maybe too hard, because then you can kind of have the opposite effect. So it's going to be a slow burn, but you hope that eventually they get there.
And DJ, they returned some guys on the offensive line, Johnson, Bourne, and Lehman, who will definitely help up front.
Yeah, and Yuri Auchi as a quarterback, where you can put him almost anywhere, because you've got another young quarterback as a freshman that you can have him slinging a little bit. So they've got options. And you know, when you watch the Pittsburgh Pirates, they like players that have their utility. They can play a lot of different places, because that creates a lot of different matchups.
Let's talk about Warren JFK. Uncharacteristically, they went 2-7 last year.
Yeah, they're going to need a little bit of a bounce back here. You know, this is another program, doesn't have a ton of numbers, but you always see them succeed. So I'll be kind of interested to see where they kind of fall, especially in the first half of the year, because that's where you kind of set the tone.
Defensively, Laszlo on the offensive line, Bartow Hill and Early, Marcus Kamara at a wide receiver spot, Noah Elzer. I mean, they have the talent here at JFK.
Yeah, I really liked your interview with Coach, because he was talking about they're not crowned yet. They're going to have to earn everything they get. And it's going back to those days of Coach Bayek and understanding what needs to happen to make things happen to potentially win another state championship.
Yeah, and something very unusual. They went losing the Division 7 state final to New Brennan, a #1 seed, to the 23rd seed, only winning 2 games. And that's historically, that's not what Warren JFK is all about.
No. Leetonia, a team that went winless last year, has a coach returning in Matt Altamere, who's back for his second stint. Brock will lead the team offensively, and you know, I know Coach Altamere's excited to get back to his alma mater.
He really wants to turn this thing around. You know, this is a program that hasn't experienced a lot of winning in recent years, but he really wants to kind of start to get the foundation set so that it can start seeing some growth over time.
Yeah, I think it comes down to you're always a little bit more proud when it's where you graduated from, your alma mater, right? He lives there, he teaches there. To come back and coach there again, I think it's very, very special for Coach.
Yeah, the bad news is they've got 20 consecutive losses going. Last win was 21 against Sebring. Only averaged 8.2 points per game. The good news is they got 8 starters back on offense and 7 back on defense.
Lisbon, a team that also has a new coach in Bill Meek. Bill has been an assistant for many, many years. A great guy, a great coach, taking over his first program. Takes over a program that finished 7-4 and went to the postseason. Ashton Hinchcliffe again. Hincliffe, excuse me, again, is one of those guys who they're going to count on very much.
Yeah, Ashton, a man of few words, but he can absolutely pound the rock. And, you know, to lose Trevor at the quarterback position is going to be a question mark for Lisbon. But I can tell you one thing about Coach Meek, and that's he cares more about these kids than anybody that will ever coach them again. So, and I know they're very excited in Lisbon to have someone like that can mentor these kids both on the field and off of it.
Yeah, it's 34 years as assistant coach, and they've made the playoffs 3 of the last 4 seasons. They got knocked out by Western Reserve, but yeah, it's boy, that's a lot of experience, and I think that'll do well for him as a head coach.
And also on his coaching staff is the former Lisbon coach, Jim Salinas.
Yeah, that's pretty special. I mean, if there's one guy that you can bring back and ask a question or two and have it be Coach Salinas, who had that state championship way back when in '95, it's pretty good company, right?
Let's talk about Lowville a little bit. A team that won 11-2 last year. Ricky Wilrich is back as their quarterback, and Gino Perry.
Yeah, this is another team that they made, you know, some noise in recent years in the MVAC. How are they going to look? You know, you're going to try to obviously build on what you've been doing recently. So they had some good athletes. Just try to keep it going.
First time in a long time, there's no blown at quarterback, right? So, I mean, to have Wilrich, and I've heard rave reviews about this young man. He likes to throw the ball, and he's got a cannon for an arm. But I do like Perry in the backfield. Oh, he's got that look to him. He's going to run through some dudes this year.
2014, 2019, no playoffs. They hired a new coach, Andrew Mamula. Since then, all 4 years in the playoffs. Very strong program. They were 9-1 last year, 6th seed. They won 2 playoff games.
Let's talk a little bit about McDonald. This is a team that's going back to their old days, the wing T.
Got to run the football. That was kind of the thing with them, years ago. It was always them in Western Reserve and Springfield, and it was just they were one of those three-headed monsters in that conference. Try to get it back, start on the ground.
Create misdirection. That's what the wing T is all about, right? We've seen a lot of local teams have a lot of success with that, with not a whole lot of talent, or not as much talent as they wanted to. So the wing T could very, very much help McDonald this year.
And the cupboard's not bare with McDonald. Isaac is back, Hippel's back, Casey Miller, Kyle Puckett, Brady Klockner. On the skill side of things. So, Champ, this is a team running the wing T. I know that's your type of football.
Oh, yeah. Yeah, it's because I'm big, right? But, 25th year for Coach Dan Williams, and since 2003, they've only had 3 losing seasons. Now, they struggled down the stretch, losing 5 of the last 7 to get the 15th seed. But, yeah, he's been very successful at McDonald's, and that'll be interesting to watch. Maybe them and Boardman should play, see what happens, right? It'll be over quickly.
Yes, it would. And that's the running the football. Those games are over very, very quickly. Well, that's a look at Division 7. We'll touch on a few more teams when our high school football roundtable continues. Welcome back to our high school football roundtable as we come to you from the Warren Wellness Center, as this facility is right next to Molenkoff Stadium. And if you're familiar with Molenkoff Stadium, it's right from the home side. It's to the right. They moved the band shell over into the corner. And certainly Superintendent Steve Shiro and the Warren Board of Education have done an outstanding job with this for the students of Warren. Let's continue our look at some of the area teams. Let's start with Cheney, a team that finished 5-4 last year. They have the Hill brothers, Alex and Alan, and these guys are juniors, and they are very good football players.
They're very good football players, and this is kind of the program. When you look at Easton Cheney, Cheney's been the one that's kind of like taken the reins to represent Youngstown City Schools. And I know that that's a program, the players there, they have some pride in what they've been able to do recently.
I think their quarterback returns in Matt Jones, and being a year into this system under Seth Antrim, that should only help him.
Yeah, and I think he's maturing in this system, maturing on and off the field, so I think that's going to help them. As long as he can stay on the field from an injury standpoint and whatnot, I think that Cheney's always going to be in a ball game. They've got so much athleticism that it's hard to keep up with that, and it's hard to lock it down on tape because they can just go, completely audible out of a play and do something completely different you've never seen before.
We talk about how Mooney and Harding could win 4 games to make the playoffs. Well, Cheney was 5-4. The problem is they only had 1 victory of a winning team. All 4 losses were to playoff schools, and in this year's schedule, 3 of their first 4 games are on the road.
Well, it will be tough for them. Let's talk a little bit about Poland. I mean, Mike Pavlansky no longer coaching at Canfield, but Tom is coached, at Poland now in his 4th or 5th season. Certainly, it begins up front with them with Tyler Campbell and Dominic Urich.
It's another youth movement, and Poland, you just never know what you're going to get. It's a mixed bag. I'm hearing they're another one of those teams that has a great freshman class coming up, a lot of talent and a lot of potential, but they're going to have to earn their stripes on Friday nights.
Well, they tied for the best regular season, 9-1, go back to 2015. But Tom Pavlansky in his 4th year, 21-9, 2-3 playoff record overall. So they always have a strong program. But you're right, you never know what you're going to do get with the bull. And then maybe it's typically of a bulldog. If you own a bulldog, you never know what you're going to get with that dog either. So.
I mean, the real question, when we kind of get down to it, is going to be the playoffs, right? This is a program that for years kind of prided itself on being able to get there, but was never really able to make a deep run. That's going to be if you do get those young guys playing and they can set the tone, that's going to be what can start to differentiate this team from teams of past.
Their schedule will help them with the playoffs, though. I mean, you look at the NEA, they usually schedule up. So getting a couple wins over some D4, D3 teams will help them jump in the D5s.
And they had the regular season win over Struthers. Then unfortunately, they had to play them in the playoffs and got beat by Struthers. So it's not an advantage when you have to try to beat a team twice in one season.
And I think it's an interesting opener because they open up with Salem, which is, I think, a good opener.
It's a team that's definitely going to give them a really good test. And that's where, like you said, you get those young guys in there. Salem has definitely has a reputation for being able to kind of go and take on a number of different teams. Go out there and prove yourselves, especially if you're one of those young guys. Make a name for yourself and start to build.
Let's stay in Mahoning County and touch on Western Reserve a little bit. John Armini, has not missed a beat since taking over this program. They went 9-3 last year, went to the postseason. They lost their running back early in the season in Jack Darney. He's back for his senior season. Hemberger is back. Chris Prater's back. The offensive line, 2 of the 5 returned. So, again, the ingredients are there.
The ingredients are there, and it's just what are you going to bake with it? And Coach Armini, as you said, is able to kind of take those ingredients and bake cakes. He can bake a pie out of it. You get whatever you need, whatever he needs to be and those kids need him to be, he is. Skill, I think they're going to be okay. But are they going to be able to move those other teams around in the trenches? You said how important it is. Western Reserve is going to learn very quickly against Crestview, another physical team, how important it is to establish dominance.
Yeah, we know two things about this program is that they've qualified for the postseason 14 of the last 18 years, so a good chance they'll be in the playoffs. And since 2006, only 1 losing season, so they're going to have a winning record. The key is where they're at, how the brackets work out, and how far can they go.
And that Division 7 region 20, what am I thinking? 25 is very difficult because you have your Rittmans in there, you have your Daltons in there, and you have even Mogador in there, and or Mogador's in 6, I believe. But again, it's just a tough region.
And they got eliminated last year by Lowville, another very good team in that region.
Lakeview, a team that is Derek Bush's second year, finished 5-6. They have Tom Easton back as he's going to be the quarterback or be part of this offense, and certainly a young man who will lead this team. But, Derek Bush, I think, really did an outstanding job last year, in his first year going to the postseason.
Lakeview, another team that gets it done in the weight room, and they understand that's where it starts and that's where it ends. I'm really interested. I think I'm interested most to see what Lakeview hangs their hat on this year. Is it going to be being physical, or is it going to be blowing past people, or trying to? So I think the first couple weeks are going to be very interesting on tape to see kind of who they want to be this year, because nobody seems to know.
And one of the surprise teams last year, they grabbed the 8th seed, and the previous 5 seasons, their overall record was 10-38. Their last playoff win is 2010 against St. Clairsville. So making the playoffs last year was a good start to maybe get this program rolling again.
And Dan, it seems like he got that system into place, and these kids are responding.
They've always had the tools. Lakeview's one of those odd teams, right? They're not a Warren, they're not a Youngstown, but they always seem to have some linemen. They always have some receivers. They always have some, running backs or some quarterback play. It's just bringing it all together, and that's kind of what you're going to need to see this year. Yeah, you got the opportunity. Time to start to, like you said, time to see what those ingredients kind of what
Sure.
They end up kind of getting out of that, because there's definitely the talents there.
In 2022. We had 3 teams that played for a state championship. Last year we had 0. So do we have a team that can make that move and get there?
Yes. I guess you didn't say and why, so yes, we do.
I have to say yes only because since '99, it's only the 4th time we didn't have a regional champion, and the first time in 8 years. We had 3 teams, and I think all 3 teams that lost in the regional finals last year, they could actually come back and win again. That's South Range, Ursuline, and who's the other one? South Range and Ursuline. Help me on this one.
Canfield.
South Range. South Range. All 3 of those teams could very easily get back to the regional final and go on to the Final Four.
All right, well, we'll see what happens, but we'll have more when our high school football roundtable continues. Welcome back to our final segment of our high school football roundtable, and certainly we hope you are enjoying this. We're going to touch on Pennsylvania real quick here, and Dan, I mean, when you talk about Mercer County football, it all starts with Farrell.
Farrell is obviously, that's the crown jewel. They are the team that has state title, ambitions every year. They're coming in. They're replacing Cabron Smith at quarterback. So you're going to have Aaron Pegues, who's Aunt Pegues' son. He's going to be taking over. You still got Jules Johnson at running back. And I know there are some guys up front that they really think will be able to provide some time for Pegues, while also creating holes for Johnson in the run game. Defensively, they're really going to rely on that, just the athleticism that they have to kind of take them over the top on the defensive side of the ball.
So, I mean, they're there. I mean, Hickory's also over there. Sharon should have a great season. Wilmington, I mean, the list could go on and on.
Yeah, Wilmington, they run, that's a run-heavy team we talked about. I think it was Hubbard playing them. That's going to be a really quick game. That's a team that has a winning pedigree. Hickory, they were the deepest runners last year. They ended up, making it to a state semifinal, if I remember correctly. They're bringing back a lot of talent, specifically when you look at guys like Kelvin Morrison, running back, when you look at, Xander Feleza, quarterback, Ben Walls on the offensive line, they're going to be good. Sharon's defense dominated a lot of teams last year, had a lot of shutouts. They're going to be bringing back a lot of key players as well. So there's going to be some returning talent that's really going to try to make a name for themselves and try to build on what they did last year.
And Champ, I know you don't dive into Mercer County football, but Farrell has been dominant.
Yeah, and the game that I'm looking forward to is Ursuline once again. Yeah. Another game that was last year was a great game, and that's a good test to see, kind of measure Pennsylvania and Ohio football. But I'm glad that we have that rivalry going, Pennsylvania and Ohio.
I mean, back in the day, Ursuline was playing Sharon, and Ursuline is playing Farrell. I mean, Hubbard's playing Wilmington. I'd like to see maybe some more of those, but I know District 10 over there sometimes, does the scheduling for them. But I know there's been talk of some schools trying to play each other.
And it's good for not just the sport, but it's good for everybody, right? Because like you said, you get different perspectives on things. Get Greenville, who's, running a, different offense from what you'll see out of, let's say, Pymatuning Valley or, whatever you see in the NAC or the MVAC. So it always provides good Sharon versus, if Sharon played Cheney or something like that. It would be an interesting matchup just to see how these guys line up.
Well, let's talk about this season. And DJ, over at YSN, what are the plans for 2024?
Oh man, we've been chomping at the bit for football season. We start out with 32 games this week. We got 4 or 5 on Friday, a bunch on Friday, or 4 or 5 on Thursday, a bunch on Friday, and 3 on Saturday. So we're starting off with a bang. I think it's really exciting because we have more people, more announcers that have wanted to be involved more than ever before. So that gives us a better opportunity to cover more schools, more communities, and most importantly, more student athletes.
And if people want to watch the games, give us the procedure, the website, so on and so forth.
Yeah, real simple, ysnlive.com. It'll take you to a live page. Every day we refresh it. You can take that link wherever you want to go. And we have the Audible Call that Mike Ackelson will be hosting again for his 4th year. And we're excited for that again. And if you just want to sit back, let the remote get tucked in the couch and watch games and let us flip the channels for you, we can do that too.
Well, we appreciate that. And Dan, you took over as a sports editor at the Tribune Chronicle and Vindicator just a couple of weeks ago. Congratulations on this. You're not a stranger. You were at the Vindicator before.
Oh, yeah.
But you guys put out a great tab on Saturday and Sunday. Tell us a little bit about that and your coverage plans for the 2024 season.
Yeah, couldn't thank the guys at the office for holding down the fort long enough for that football tab. So I really appreciate them. Week 1, we're going to be at the Canton McKinley game with Harding. We have Walsh Jesuit and Ursuline we're going to be looking at. We got a couple other games that we're trying to make sure we can kind of get those ironed out. We're going to look at Canfield West Branch, which should be another good one. So we're going to try to get the Niles Howland. There's a number of games that we can always pick from.
And then you also have another keepsake tab coming out, right?
That is going to be coming out this weekend. So for people who don't know, the football tab that you traditionally think of, that's the stories with some art, and then the keepsake tab, which comes out this weekend, that's going to have your rosters, that's going to have the team photos, the coaches photos, all of those things that everybody's parents and grandparents want to hold on to.
Well, that's great, and the tabs were great on this past Saturday, and we look forward to the ones on this coming Saturday as well. Of course, our plans at TV21 remain the same. We'll have the most highlights in town. We'll have the Great Clips Overtime Report starting at 11:10 every Friday night. Highlights of at least 19 area games every Friday night. That is 38 schools, and we certainly enjoy doing that. We are in our 31st year of the Great Clips Overtime Report. We have covered more than 6,500 games, so we look forward to that as well. The first Friday night of the Great Clips Overtime Report is this coming Friday, as we will have highlights of 19 area games. Again, we want to thank the Warren School Board, Superintendent Steve Shiro, Athletic Director Rick Shepis for allowing us to come in here tonight in a controlled environment to review this, to preview the 2024 high school football season. We wish all the teams the best of luck as they embark on this journey. In 10 weeks, we'll find out who's in and who's not in, but certainly we wish all the teams the best of luck. Want to thank DJ, want to thank Champ and Dan Hiner as well for joining us tonight, and our terrific crew behind the scenes who made it all possible to bring this to you tonight. So we'll see you at a football field this coming week as we get set for week